Good day. This is the Severe Weather Outlooks edition for this Friday, the last day of July. I'm meteorologist Ted Keller. We have a little short wave or a bit of energy moving through the flow, and that's what you're seeing on the screen now, that slight risk yellow area there for eastern Missouri and a portion of western Illinois, pretty much centered around St. Louis. That's for today. It's a level 2 out of the 5 of the categories that the SPC will issue. If we zoom in on that, you can see a little more detail of what cities are included. So it goes from Macomb to Springfield, Illinois, right through the heart of St. Louis. It would include Quincy, Columbia, Rolla, Farmington, all the way down to Poplar Bluff in that area. And then what kind of severe weather are we talking about here? Well, the tornado risk has been showing up for days. It's still at a level lowest of the ones that the SPC will even talk about, 2% chance of any tornado within 25 miles. And that comes as far west, not quite to Springfield, but it does go to Lebanon and Mountain Home, Arkansas, and it certainly would include Houston and West Plains and Rolla, Salem, Columbia, and all the way up to Quincy, all in that 2% risk. Basically, it pretty much encompasses the slight risk area to a good approximation anyway. And then there is some hail risk with this, but the wind risk is the only one that's bothered to go up to the 15% category. Hail is about 5, and usually I don't always show that when it's that low. So a little bit of wind risk with these storms, again, in the slight risk area. Now, let's take a look at the tornado probabilities from other angles. NATOcast, which is one version of a learning machine that goes through the latest model data. This is updated from the 0Z or last night's data since I'm recording this early, but it does still show that 3% chance in that corridor from just northwest of St. Louis right up the Mississippi River, including Hannibal, Quincy, that area. And that is, of course, for today. And if we look at the tornado risk from StormNet's perspective, this has gone up and then come back down. Its position has shifted a little bit, but it's been pretty consistent. Now it's an 11% chance in that area there. That's the 10% line right there. But again, it's centered from Rolla over maybe to Farmington and up into around Herman, Missouri, that area. And that is this time frame is 6 to 7 o'clock tonight. So when I start grabbing images from StormNet early on, it does it hour by hour, and then it gradually gets more model data in the longer term and makes it in 12-hour intervals. So on the day of, we can take a look at it hourly, and that's how it shows up. That's probably the maximum extent and percentage that I've found just looking hour by hour. But it did start out up here, of course, and slide this way along that 2% risk area. And finally, CSU does have actually a 5% area there, pretty much mirroring what we've been showing so far, but going more into Iowa. And the 2% risk is a larger area, basically. And there's that wind risk, too, which goes more into Arkansas. And then the hail risk is pretty much not there to a large extent. It is there, but not the emphasis. So the severe thunderstorm risk areas for tomorrow, Saturday, first day of August, we've got some marginal risk areas out there in New Mexico, and then this is a continuation of what we just talked about for today. So move from here to here, and we have a slight risk there, that yellow area, what does actually technically include Nashville, very close to Chattanooga, not shown on the map, but we're looking at Huntsville, Alabama right there, almost up to Louisville. So that is for Saturday, level 2 out of 5. The tornado risk is that same as today, that 2% kind of annoying chance. You can't discard it. It might happen in a storm or two that runs from southeastern parts of Indiana and southwestern Ohio, including Dayton and Cincinnati, and goes down to Louisville and Lexington and continuing southward almost to the Tennessee border. And just like today, the hail risk is not above 5%, but the severe wind risk does get to a 15% chance in that area of yellow, pretty close to where the slight risk area is. In fact, it might exactly be that, and usually is. The CSU severe thunderstorm outlook for tomorrow, Saturday, does include a couple of patches of 2% tornado risk in Indiana and all the way down to almost Atlanta. And then no real hail of any consequence. The wind risk for this day kind of shifts to the squall line that might be anticipated there from northern Alabama down into southern Mississippi. On Sunday, we only have 2 marginal risk areas. You know how that goes, 3 days away. We'll get more detail from the models and looking at how things change, and there would be room to upgrade the center of these to a slight risk if that was necessary. I don't think it'll go beyond that, though. Colorado State University's outlook for Sunday does include a really broad kind of 2% tornado risk that goes from southeast Canada all the way down to North Carolina. no hail, and even the wind risk doesn't go above the 5% that the SPC would be looking at to really get too excited about it. Same goes for this forecast here. Actually, the SPC on Monday has pulled the trigger on a 15% risk. They're centered from Fargo up to Canada. Bemidji and Grand Forks would be included in that. But if you take a look at that outlook, which I just showed you, that's there, and you look at CSU's probabilities, they're not real excited about much of anything, and most of it is away from where the SPC located that. So there's always going to be some room for human, obviously, forecast disagreement. These two help each other. We're looking at various AI models. A lot of them look into the past, to try to get probabilities based on the model data they're seeing, and that is a help, I think, in many cases. And then finally, we'll look at a very diminished supercell outlook for the first week here. This is July 31st today through the 6th. Just a smattering of supercell probabilities and all really low. So a lot of these outlook areas are just not getting a lot of, I think, real serious attention. It's not that severe weather is not possible. It's just it's in a pretty benign state right now. Of course, that high pressure area, the next front that drove today's and tomorrow's severe weather eastward and southeastward is sitting there. And then week 2, there's evidence that it's still there with some maybe return flow side on these highs, with moisture and instability working their way northward into the Dakotas from Kansas. That's week 2, the 7th of August through the 13th. And finally, the week 3, again, has supercells where you would expect them, the northern plains. Supercells are always going to be found where the unstable air is and where the best overall jet stream flow is. And that, of course, retreats northward as it often does in the summer months. And we've seen this consistent pattern where there's been a ridge of high pressure here and a little bit of troughing here, kind of looking like that on average. So that explains why these supercells are hanging out where they are.